where we test the boundaries of imagination and are forced to think outside the confines and restrictions of what is normal. We are the creators, the writers, the artists, and the insane. Welcome to our weird realities. Good evening, everybody. This is your host, Finley Jones, along with Crystal.
Hi, everybody.
We may have some people join us or hop in for a few minutes later, but for now, it's just us.
Yeah.
We're enough.
We are.
Yeah. So tonight, oh, there's Bethany. Tonight,
Hello.
Hi, Bethany.
Hello. Hello.
Tonight, we're talking about Slenderman or the Slenderman Stabbings.
Dun, dun.
Yeah. This was crazy.
Yes.
And I had to do a little bit of research because I don't like scary movies. So I thought Slenderman was more about some type of, made up fictional scary movie character. And of course, it is a made up fictional character, but it wasn't from a movie. It was just an online internet. What's the word I'm looking for here? Do what?
It was a meme and a creepypasta.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it blew up. I was looking for Slenderman video games because it was mentioned in some of the other articles that I read.
Mm-hmm.
And there are like 10 that I was able to find.
Yeah.
Video games.
Yeah, I watched some like videos of people playing some of the Slenderman games.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of videos out there of people being like, it's a real Slenderman sighting. And with how Slenderman looks, it's like really easy to create a Slenderman costume and create those type of videos, I think.
I guess my biggest thing was he was so tall. How could you possibly?
Stilts?
Yeah, I guess.
Or just like, I mean, there's so much you can do to video if you know what you're doing. You can edit stuff,
And this is a bunch of kids. So I guess it wouldn't take much for the Slenderman to look really tall.
Also, like distance, like if you have someone standing really close to the camera and then standing really far back, like that person closer will look taller.
Yeah, forced perspective. They use that a lot in movies. Yeah.
Like a Lord of the Rings and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things I read was in the beginning, it started as kids seeing who could do the best Photoshop to put Slenderman in the back of the picture as if he was looking for his next child victim.
Ooh, creepy.
Very creepy.
I think Slenderman actually started like it was there was like a photo contest for making some sort of creepy photo, and somebody like had found this like quote from something, and they just kind of created the Slenderman photos, and it won the photo contest, and it just kind of
blew up.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So before we jump in, is there anything y'all want to share, Bethany? You have anything happening anytime soon?
No.
No?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Actually, I'm sorry. Crystal and I, our show is going to be coming up. Crystal's actually going to be down here in Tucson, and we're going to try and get together and have a campfire and have an actual Blondes, Books, and Campfire Tales event. So,
yeah, fireside event.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, we're excited.
That'll be fun.
That's going to be our next episode, which is the 27th.
Yeah.
Okay. Something to look forward to for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. What about you, Crystal? Anything for you?
That's what I have coming up.
Same thing. That was easy, but nothing else. Okay,
she's all ditto.
Ditto. Okay, so let's talk about Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier. These poor kids. I shouldn't say these poor kids. Peyton is the one that.
Yeah, Peyton's the victim. And
he's the victim. But it just goes to show how deeply mental illness can affect a child if we're not paying attention to what's going on in their world.
And I
And
think
that's not a dig at parents either. I mean,
Oh.
they had no idea that Morgan had schizophrenia and all that stuff. That's just sometimes our kids don't tell us things.
Yeah.
Could you guys do like a recap? Because I didn't know I was going to be on tonight, like literally like 15 minutes ago. So I didn't do any research. So do you guys want to do a recap and kind of let me know what you're talking about?
Yeah. Do you want to do the recap, Finley?
Sure. So Peyton and Morgan had been best friends for 2 years. And then I believe Anissa came along. I may have that backwards. They were best friends.
Right. I think Peyton and Morgan were best friends since like 4th grade. And then in 6th grade,
they met Anissa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was a birthday party for Morgan. And so they were all at her house. And they were in the documentary Beware the Slender Man. They said that they debated on just killing her in the house and then covering her up like she was sleeping and then running away. But they decided that they wanted her to have one more morning. So the next morning they went out and into the woods and basically stabbed her 19 times and then left her for dead.
Oh, man.
And she was able to crawl up to the road. I got the impression she wasn't too far from the road to begin with, but with 19 stab wounds, I mean,
yeah,
it was probably felt like 3 miles to her.
Yeah.
But a biker saw her and called 911, and they got her to the hospital, and she made a full recovery. But I can't imagine the emotional scars that she had. And she was not in that documentary. Her family wasn't in it, and she was not in it. It was strictly about Morgan and Anissa. And I would have liked to have known more about Peyton.
I would like to know more about Peyton, but I also, as the victim, I also respect that she wants that privacy.
Right. Well. I do know that she is in school to be a nurse because she made a comment that this whole situation and her having to be in the hospital is what inspired her to get into the medical field.
Oh.
So she said she was, I don't want to say grateful, but kind of thankful that it happened because it opened her eyes to a path she had not thought about before, basically.
Well, she took that trauma and that tragedy, and she's making a positive out of it.
Right.
Exactly. There's things, I think we can all think of things that have happened in our lives that we would rather have not had happen. Mm-hmm. But if you can turn it into a positive in some way, I think that can make you stronger for it in some ways. So I'm glad she did that.
So they found.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. They find Morgan and Anissa about 5 miles away.
Okay.
Because Peyton was awake enough to say, it was my best friends that did it. So she was obviously able to tell them who it was. So they knew who they were looking for right off the bat. And they were on their way to Nicollet National Forest?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they were going to the Slender Mansion to live and be proxies for Slender Man.
Yeah. And Peyton was supposed to be their sacrifice to Slender Man so that Slender Man wouldn't hurt their families.
Right. And they genuinely believed this?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scary.
I mean, when you think about it, 12-year-olds are just they're so impressionable. They are still open to believing so much. I think one of the mothers in the documentary, I think maybe Anissa's mother, was talking about how she had still believed in Santa until she was 11, which I don't think is actually super uncommon for kids to still believe in Santa Claus to 10, 11 years old.
Right.
You're still And you're just like, your mind is still just like open to so much and so impressionable and so easy to sway.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, they did both have mental issues that were undiagnosed at the time. And I think just the two of them having similar mental issues and being that impressionable just unfortunately was the perfect storm to lead to this event happening.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so basically this all kind of started from like a creepypasta story and memes and stuff like that, and these girls just could not decipher reality from fiction.
Yeah. Well, Morgan was diagnosed schizophrenic. And one of the things that the doctor, I believe it was the doctor, one of the doctors in that Beware the Slender Man. Sorry, I got choked on a piece of popcorn. Anyway, he said that it's one thing for someone with schizophrenia to have a delusion, and most people with schizophrenia that are medicated with the proper help can live pretty normal lives.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's a fixed delusion, and that delusion does not go away and is telling you repeatedly that you have to do something and you do it, that's where the issue came in. They were trying to decide whether they needed to be tried as adults or as juveniles. And this was prior to their convictions. This was 2017, I think, when they did the documentary. And it was over a good period of time, because at one point they said 2 months after the stabbing, and then it was 6 months after the stabbing. So it was probably in 2016 that they started the documentary.
Okay. Well, I think the stabbing happened in 2014.
Right.
So they started
in 2015.
Yeah, it was in May 2014 is when the stabbing happened. And then the court case finalized in 2017. So the documentary was going on for about 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. But in the documentary, it had not given us the sentences for them. And then I can't remember. There was something else that I thought was kind of interesting that they did not include. I guess I was waiting for that thing to pop up. Update. This is what the girls were convicted, but I guess that's not how a documentary works.
Yeah. Both of them were convicted to mental hospitals. I believe they were in. I believe that they were in a juvenile facility during the criminal proceedings, but they were both convicted to spend time in mental hospitals due to their mental illnesses. But they did have, like, I think Anissa was at least, like, I think her sentence was 25 years and Morgan's was 40 years.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a situation where they wouldn't be able to get out on parole, because Anissa is actually out at this time.
Okay.
Yeah. And she's on supervised release, and she did have GPS tracking, which was taken off a few months ago. Actually, she's no longer on GPS tracking.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. After the stabbing, Angie, who is Anissa's mother, said that she was floridly psychotic. She had conversations still with Slenderman. She claimed that Severus Snape would visit her, and he kept her up until 3 a.m. one morning. She saw unicorns, and then ants that were in her cell she treated as pets. It said she had early onset schizophrenia. This is the psychologist. That was very rare for someone so young.
Yeah. I think schizophrenia is usually not diagnosed until like late teens to early 20s.
Yeah, that's what I've heard also.
So for somebody so young to have such a severe case of schizophrenia, I think was definitely like very rare.
And her dad, she found out, I guess, that her dad also had schizophrenia, or maybe she knew. I don't know.
No, they did.
I didn't get the
They
impression.
had not, like, they had not told her yet. I think, like, I saw an interview with her dad, and like they were talking about they were trying to decide when and how to tell her that he had it, because he had been on medication for years and like had it pretty well controlled due to the medication. So she was not aware at the time that her dad had schizophrenia.
Okay.
And
So
So
Yeah.
are there any other cases besides just this case, or and the rest is just kind of like the games and creepypasta stuff, or
the rest, games and creepypasta. This is the only one I saw related to, only true story that I saw related to Slender Man.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, watching some of those videos of those kids playing that game, if they were so terrified, why did they keep playing the game?
Well, why do we watch horror movies and research stuff? Like people
And
like
go
to
on
be
roller
scared.
coasters. Mhm.
Yeah.
Researching is different to me than
Yeah.
than
But I mean,
watching the movies.
it's like going to a haunted house, or like Bethany said, like horror movies and things. It's like a controlled scared.
Yeah,
'Cause we like-
exactly.
because being scared, it gives you this adrenaline rush, and adrenaline rushes can be addicting. And so it's like you like the feeling afterwards, and it's a controlled environment, so you know you're not actually in any danger. Same with going on roller coasters, things like that.
Well, I mean, unless you watch Final Destination, then roller coasters are bad.
Well, I did watch Final Destination. That type of scary is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part doesn't scare me.
But there's a lot of different things. Like, and what's interesting is I'm finding stuff that I enjoyed watching when I was younger, like some of the scary stuff. I almost can't tolerate it now being a little older. I don't know if it just got more graphic or what, but some things I can't watch anymore. But there's still
Whenever,
plenty you can, but
yeah. Do you remember when the movie Fire? Well, y'all are younger than me. Do you remember Firestarter with Drew Barrymore?
yeah. They came out with a remake too.
I have not seen the remake. I will watch that. I haven't seen it yet, but
it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I
And Zach
remember.
was really cute.
Yeah, I remember telling my kids, y'all are going to love this movie. It is so good. And the graphics and the sound effects were so bad.
Oh,
And it was hard to compare it to what they had been seeing whenever they would watch movies, because it was just bad. But it was that was in the 80s.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, things have gotten so much better since then.
I mean, I was watching the first Harry Potter movie the other day, and like the CGI in that was laughable at this point. You know, it's like, so something from the 80s. Like, it's just, you know, technology with the special effects and the CGI and all of that has improved so much, and it happens so gradually you don't realize it until you're like, I'm going to watch this movie that's 20 or 30 years old, and you're just like, oh wow, yeah. But then I was watching Jurassic Park, and a lot of that stuff still looks really good, and I think it's because they used animatronics instead
that's
of
literally what I was going to say. I was like, but then you got Jurassic Park movies
Mhm.
that are still really good.
Yeah. Excuse me. I had a thought and it went away. I hate it when that happens.
same.
It's okay. We do it all the time
Oh.
on our show.
Yeah. AI. So AI is here. It's not going anywhere. It's the next big thing. How do you think that AI will contribute to situations like this where Slender Man is not real? I mean, they can make anything real with AI.
I mean, I
Real
think,
in quotes.
yeah. Like with AI, I mean, AI is getting like better and better all the time, but it still has like its issues. But I'm sure in like 10 years, you know, I wasn't dissing Harry Potter, Mike. I was just saying this guy looks silly at this point.
That made me giggle. I had to share
Very
it.
obvious at this point, where when we first watched it in like 1998, it was not as obvious. That's all I was saying. but with AI, like sometimes you'll see like there's people that have like they have just a ridiculous amount of fingers and it still has an almost cartoonish quality to it.
Yeah.
Just like a really good cartoon. But I think in like 10 years, if somebody's like coming up, I think Slender Man is so well known at this point and so well known to be fictitious that it'd be harder to convince people that Slender Man's real, but there's going to be some new story. I mean, it's kind of like what we talk about on Blonde's Books and Campfire Tales, because we talk about urban legends a lot. They change and develop, and there's new ones coming up all the time. So in 10 years, there's going to be some new internet urban legend that's going to have this like amazing AI proof. And it'll just be really easy, I think, for especially younger kids to think that it's real.
I guess it just goes back to, and this was something that Morgan and Anissa's dad, more so than Morgan's parents, dealing with the iPad that the school provides for the kids. It really bothered him that they needed that, but at the same time, didn't want to hinder his learning. And schools will put restrictions on what the kids can look at when they're on the internet. Mm-hmm. But that's not 100% proof.
Yeah, my nephew hacked that system when he was in elementary school. Much to the joy of my brother, who's an IT guy, but also at the same time, they're like, can't do that, kid,
Yeah, see, I don't know. Technology is a curse and a blessing sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with AI though, like in terms of, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I think it's just, it's kind of like when there were really violent video games, and that's what parents and people focused on as the root of kids' tendencies and thinking, bad thoughts and stuff like that. There's always going to be something, no matter what. There will always be something. And kids will adapt with the change as technology. Like if we look at stuff that we see now, if we saw that as a kid, it would terrify us. But kids now, like they're so desensitized to certain things,
Yeah.
So I think going forward, as AI gets more, advanced, so our kids going to adapt to it, type thing. And then it'll be another thing that comes out,
we say it all the time. I'm so glad we did not have cell phones and video when I was younger.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine how that would have changed the trajectory of my life.
Well, I'm just glad a lot of stuff isn't a video evidence right now of what I did as a kid.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, like only stuff we have video evidence of is what we wanted to have video evidence of.
Highly edited.
Mom and Dad's camcorder.
Yes. But at the same time, I think there was a lot of cool stories we could have told too. Like if we had the capabilities of TikTok from when I was younger, like my brothers and I, and even Crystal's been part of some home videos, like just we could have come up with some bomb shows. But yeah.
Yeah, we could have.
Yeah, I think like I've actually thought about that, Bethany. Like if you and I had TikTok when we were in high school, we would have been all over TikTok.
Yeah.
Like, but at the same time, I am kind of glad, like, like it wasn't as easy to record things because I'm like, there's some stuff that I did that I'm just like, I'm so glad only a few people know about that. Only a few people witness that.
Or how people are taking things now and editing it to make it look bad, or everyone just so quick to record something. And I think that kind of goes back to the Slenderman stuff is AI and everything can become so real, but there's still that feeling of, is it real or not? Because everything is so heavily videotaped and easily recorded now. Why isn't it caught easy?
Right.
Like, why is it still a grainy picture or only when this happens type thing? Like, how is it not caught on a Ring camera or something? Like, they're as it evolves, the story's going to have to evolve too.
Yeah.
So if you guys hear noises,
it's easier to like alter things as well,
Yeah.
And I've definitely seen like Ring camera videos that are talking about like, oh, I caught a Bigfoot on my Ring camera, or I caught, so people are like altering stuff like that. I mean, you can usually tell, but like, so I do think we're seeing that evolution happening already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And Mike made a good point. Everything you record today, anything you put on the internet is out there forever.
Yeah.
Somebody brought up a good point the other day, though. We were like, somebody said something about that, and they're like, well, why can't I find my Zynga then? And I'm like, oh my gosh, Zynga. Like, thinking about the stuff I put on my Zynga, I'm like, I hope that's buried and super hard for anybody to find. I haven't been able to find it. If I could, I'd delete everything.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know what that is either with Zynga.
It was like an online, it was like a blog kind of thing, like, but more like a diary format.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like a WordPress is now or something like that.
Yeah, it was early 2000s. So
Gotcha.
I had MySpace.
MySpace.
I'm sorry. I'm still upset that everybody went to Facebook. I still liked MySpace better. You could personalize it way more.
Like, I don't have a cool song playing on my Facebook page, but I could on MySpace.
I had like all these different playlists that I created. There was a website, I don't remember what it's called anymore, but there was a website that you could go and build playlists and embed them onto your MySpace.
Ooh. Well, and now how many photos did I have on my MySpace that I can't access now because they're gone?
Yeah.
Like, I had a ton of cool photos.
Yeah. I actually did a while back I was able to log on to my MySpace, and I think it was like within the past 10 years. I don't remember, but it was a few years ago. And I was able to go back and like save all the ones that I wanted from MySpace. Like, MySpace still exists. It's mostly used by the music community now.
Yeah.
But it is still there. And if you still know your login information, you can still get into your profile.
Yeah, just a lot of the pictures are gone now. Because I actually went in this last year. Someone had said something like, hey, if you go to this and do this code, then you can get all your stuff. And so I tried that, and like half my photos were gone.
Oh, that's
wow.
So, but my song was still playing. It was a good song.
Hey.
Wow.
Oh, it's the little things.
So, okay, let's come back to Slenderman because one of the other things that really no, you're good. One of the other things that really bothered me about this entire case was the interviews with the girls and the detectives, and then I guess she was a psychologist, maybe for the police department. Spoke to oh gosh. It was the detective. I can't remember which detective it was. Anyway, he asked her, hold on, I got to find it again. Okay. Dadgummit. Where is it? I hate it when that happens. Oh, she asked how far they had walked that day. Oh,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Quote, because I'm not usually very athletic and I just want to know, end quote. This is what the article says. She seemed very impressed by the challenges they had faced on their long walk after leaving Bella. Bella is Peyton. Harping on about the distance, the threat of heat exhaustion and mosquitoes and the limited snacks. The granola bar she had packed was disgusting. Her words. And near the end of her interview, she seemed to share a revelation with the detective. And it was, if she didn't go to school that Monday, it would be the first day that she'd missed of school.
Yeah, they were very, very calm. Both girls were very calm and matter of fact throughout their interviews immediately after. And then they were asking like, oh, is Bella okay? And they were talking about her like she was still their friend, and it's like, you just stabbed this girl 19 times. I don't care how good of friends you were before. You're not friends anymore.
No, not at all. Anissa was later diagnosed with a shared delusional belief, a condition that faded the longer she was separated from Morgan.
Which
Her parents had gotten divorced. She was bullied at school, but otherwise she was fine. Mentally, I mean.
was she also, I think Anissa was also diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder, or was that
Yes.
Morgan?
Well, that may have been Morgan too, because she had 2 diagnoses.
Yeah.
And
Maybe it
plus
was Morgan.
asthma. Huh?
Yeah, okay, yeah, I think it was Morgan. Morgan was schizophrenic, oppositional defiant disorder, and asthma. Okay.
Yeah.
I got that confused for a second.
Yeah. They said that Anissa had a little bit of that narcissistic personality because she didn't ask about her friend's condition. She just wanted to know how far they had walked for the reasons that talked about before. She said that at one point, Bella got up. First, they said Bella was screaming, and Anissa said, mm-hmm. And then afterwards, to try to keep her quiet, I said, sit down, lay down, stop screaming. You'll lose blood slower. And she tried complaining that she couldn't breathe and that she couldn't see.
Yeah. And she also said something about, she was like, I think she like smashed or like hit Bella's head against the wall, like, because they were in a park and they started off in the bathroom, because at first they were like, well, we're going to try to stab her in the bathroom, but Peyton wasn't cooperating with what they wanted her to do in the bathroom, and they were like, oh, there's a drain here for the blood to go down. And then Anissa was like, I didn't want her to scream because I hate screaming. Yeah. And that, when she said that to me, I was just like, and it's like just the absolute dissociation that they had from Bella as an actual person at that point. They were just like completely disassociated from the fact that this is an actual person. This is a person that's not, she's not going to just go into your plans of, yes, go ahead and kill me and sacrifice me. Like, no, that's not what people do. And it was like, just from responses and discussions they had about what they did, I just think that they were like almost surprised by that yeah, Bella fought and didn't go along with their plan. Like, just, and I'm glad that they both went into a mental institution, because I do think that that's where they both needed to go. They mental help. I
agree.
So.
I agree. The other thing is that Morgan was talking and she just was like, whatever, la-di-da, this is fun. And Anissa she was emotional. It was like she knew that she had done something wrong. Even though she was calm, she was still crying. And I don't think Morgan ever did.
Yeah.
Which that now one of the girls said, Morgan said that she cried, and that when she said something to Anissa finally let go and she started crying too. But there were no tears whenever I watched that documentary, and neither one of them, well, except for Morgan, she cried a little bit, but not Morgan. I'm sorry, Anissa.
Yeah.
I guess you don't realize how blessed you are until you see something like that, because my mind was on the parents and what was going through their heads and the emotions that they were feeling. And I don't know how I would be able to handle that, which sounds pretty narcissistic because it wouldn't be me, it would be my child, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, I do definitely feel for all of the families. Like, all of the families were affected by this tragedy in different ways, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't difficult for them to handle. And I think Anis's mom talked about it a little bit. She's like, I didn't know that my daughter had these mental issues. And by the time she knew about it, it was too late. And like, you know, this is what happened. And it's like where you start questioning yourself is like, and then her dad too, you know, talking about how, you know, they had a no closed door rule in their house. And he's like, the only way I could have been more involved was sitting in her room with her.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, but he was still like second guessing himself. Like, what is there something I could have done to prevent this? Were there signs I wasn't seeing? And like, that's a hard thing to deal with.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Cannot imagine at all.
Yeah.
Mike said peer and group pressure can destroy kids that have outlying issues.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I cry at sad movies too if a dog or a kid gets hurt or dies.
Oh,
Mike?
yeah.
I think the real tragedy here, though, is that a girl almost died at the hands of a 12-year-old girl almost died at the hands of two 12-year-old girls that were supposed to be her best friends.
Yeah.
That's what gets me. You think that you know people. And
Yeah.
I know one of the things that we were always pretty strict about with our kids was, where are you going? Who are you going with? Where are they from? Who are their parents? I mean, we wanted to know that stuff. We needed to know who our kids were going to be with and what happened when they were with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I'm like, I mean, my parents don't live where I grew up anymore, but like if I was like home visiting them and going out, because I haven't lived there for a long time either, but if I was like home visiting them when they did live there and I was going to go out and visit friends, like still in my 30s, they're like, where are you going? Who are you going to be with? When are you going to be back? And it's like, I don't even live here. Like, but they still want to know those things, you know?
Yeah,
Oh,
for my parents, it was always a consideration. I mean, we're not going to tell you what time you have to be home, but we do want to know who you're going to be with and if you're coming home.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah. Like when I was in high school, there was a time I was supposed to be home, but it was always like, if something's going to change, like I didn't really have a set curfew. I think the city had a curfew, but I didn't have a set curfew. And it was just like, if plans change, call us and let us know what's going on. It was more of that situation.
I was the oldest of three, and I had a set curfew. My set curfew was 10:30 p.m. I was the guinea pig, and I was probably I was the worst behaved of the three. And I think it's because I had so many restrictions, but I appreciate them now.
I mean, Bethany and I are both the youngest, both the only girls. And I think we both probably, I know, well, I'm not going to speak for you, Bethany, but I know I had less restrictions than my brothers did. I also did less stupid stuff than they did. So I was like probably more trusted. And I was like I was involved in so many extracurriculars. I really didn't have time to get in trouble either.
Yeah. Well, and with me, I had a core group of friends. So like anytime I was going out, I was always with the same people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Once people started going off to college, then before I moved out with roommates, basically as long as I had my cell phone and I answered it anytime they called, they would be fine. But it was a little different because I was so far in age from my brothers, just like Crystal was, that when they were younger, they didn't have cell phones to check up on. So when we were teenagers, that's when cell phones were out, and it made it a little easier. So as long as our parents could get a hold of us, then it was fine. And now texting right now, that opens up another thing, because with texting, you would think it would be easier, like, hey, just checking in. But at the same time, without hearing the voice, you don't know if that's who you're talking to.
Yeah.
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 You're right.
So, but just with everything, you just learn to adapt and move on. And now they got like GPS on the phones. But then once again, that only covers where the phone's at, doesn't cover where someone else is at. So,
Yeah, and I know that they have those like tracking apps, and
yeah.
like parents do use a lot of those. But like, here's the thing, like with what happened here, even if all three girls did have cell phones, which I'm not sure exactly how common it was for 12-year-olds to have cell phones in 2014. I definitely think it's more common now. But even if they did all have cell phones and were all being tracked, their parents probably aren't thinking anything of it because they're expecting all three girls to be together. They're trusting these girls. And so they're just like, okay, they're all at the park. Okay, that's fine. They might have started questioning something like, why is Bella still at the park? And the other two are. But at the same time, each phone's probably only being tracked by their parent.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other, Bella's parent didn't know that the other kids have left the park already.
yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. And Mike, you're right. We all become desensitized because everything's right there at our fingertips.
Yeah.
I think that the world is just going to get scarier. I just hope that it's not because younger and younger people feel led to do something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think this situation is unique because of the mental health issues that both Anissa and Morgan had. But that doesn't mean that there's not other kids out there that wouldn't do something, because we do unfortunately see it happen, not all the time, but more frequently than anybody would like to see happen.
Well, and even now, kids, well, not even just kids, like anybody, so many people believe whatever they see online. If it's online, it's true. Like, there's so many times that the girls will come up to me and be like, hey, Bethany, did you know you can do this and this and this? And I'm like, well, where did you get that? And they're like, TikTok. It's like, just because it's online doesn't mean it's real. And so people who have, mental instabilities, it's like they are who have mental health issues, if they already can't tell the difference, then yeah, with the use of AI and everything else, that's just going to kind of feed into their delusion even more.
Yeah.
But I think that's the point I was trying to make earlier,
Yeah.
but you said it so much more eloquently than I did. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. This was crazy. And I didn't know what Slenderman was or who he was or anything like that. I think I said that earlier. And I didn't explain more about him either. They did make video games and all that stuff. And he was a tall, thin man with white skin and no facial features. And when he wanted to, he could have these tendrils come out of his back and he could choke children.
Mm-hmm. And he can be anywhere from like 6 to like 18 feet tall or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And excuse me, I saw some other depictions of Slender Man where people painted him in a positive light. He was just helping the children and trying to lead them to a better place. Or, I mean, there's the pictures. I need to find the pictures that they found in Morgan's, was it Morgan's house? They found those pictures that she had drawn.
Yeah, I think it was Morgan. Yeah.
She had a picture of her hugging Slender Man.
Mm-hmm.
She believed that if she killed Bella, that she would be able to go live with Slender Man and she would just be his servant and that she would be safe.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like people who like take religion. Some people view one deity as good and the other deity as bad, and other people view opposite.
Mm-hmm.
It's just all in what they're researching and their mental state and their background and history. Like, there's so much stuff that just feeds into that. So yeah, I could see, like, look at cultist leaders. Like, outside the cult, everyone's like, wow, these people are crazy. But inside the cult, a lot of them are like, no, they're like, they're beautiful and they're nice and they're loving, you know, like it's all in your perception.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this story was crazy and it disturbed me on several levels as a parent, just as a human.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of reignites that fear that you really don't know what somebody's thinking. You might think you do, but you don't. And to me, that's the scariest part of all of it. That you just don't know.
And I mean, as a 12-year-old girl, like, who do you trust more than your best friends? Nobody.
Right.
Like I just think back and I'm like, I probably didn't even trust my family more than my best friends at 12 years old. You know, that's when you're starting to like really get into those teen years where like parents are the enemy and they're just trying to stop all the fun, and like you're like really trying to figure out who you are as a person, and it's a very big age developmentally wise, both mentally, emotionally, physically. And so it's a very confusing time, and like you just cling to those people that are your friends and are going through all that with you, and then to not be able to trust them, like I'm sure that that's affected Peyton's abilities to be able to trust people even now, you know?
Yeah, I would think so.
That was like what Mike said. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, it was like what Mike said about the peer pressure.
Yeah.
You know, at that age, peer pressure is everything, and doing what's popular, what everyone in media is saying to do. So if your whole social circle is going after this Slender Man guy, and it's your whole world right there, you're not going to listen to reason. And I can easily see people. I mean, how many of us at sleepovers did light as a feather, stiff as a board, and did like the Ouija board, and people nowadays who fully believe that stuff like that is real. Like it's very, very, not to say it's real or not, I'm just saying the mentality, they're believing something that some people don't. And so when you look at Slender Man, it's very easy for an impressionable, you know, tween or young adult to fully imagine that it's real, whether you have schizophrenia or not.
Yeah.
You know, that just kind of adds to the delusions. But even then, you can have an entirely sane child and still have these thoughts, or still like, hey, what was that in the corner? What was that? What did I just see? You know?
Right.
And like, and they did have a really small social circle. Like their social circle was pretty much the three of them.
Yeah.
I know like the psychologist in the documentary like mentioned, she's like, you know, if they had like a core group of like 8 girls, chances are that wouldn't have happened. But since it was just the 3 of them, it was just very much like all the Slender Man stuff. There was no other perspectives coming from other girls or from other friends. Like Bethany mentioned, like in high school, we had like a pretty solid core group of friends, and we were the ones that always hung out. And I can be like, you ask me easily, I'm like, who are the, like, to me, there was like a core 4 of us, but we still had like that was like the tighter circle. And then we had a little bit of a wider circle. That was our people that we hung out with every day at school. And then we each had our own other wider circles. Like, it might have been like in one way just a small group of 4 of us that were the 4 that hung out the most often together, but our circles were wide, and we each had our own circles that weren't related to our core circle either. So like that, I do think that that's a difference, because you're getting more perspectives.
More perspective, and one of them would have been scared.
Yeah.
And said something.
Exactly. A larger group, somebody would have said something, and like, and maybe said something to an adult. Somebody might have said something, you know, because yeah, it's not cool to be the one to tattle, but if somebody actually thought there was something scary going on, somebody would have said something.
Yeah, I agree. Well, this has been a fun discussion. Bethany, thanks for staying on the whole time.
Yeah. If you guys heard noises, I was putting away dishes and doing laundry.
No, you were good. If you heard noises from me, I was eating popcorn and drinking my sweet tea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just still trying to get rid of this cough and drinking my hot tea. So, you know,
Yeah,
it's gone.
all this weather.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. I think this is going to wrap up our discussion of Slenderman. And keep an eye out in the news because Morgan Geisler has asked for early release.
Yeah.
So that should come out in the news here soon. Yeah. And stay weird, people. Have fun and stay weird. And don't forget on February 27th to keep an eye out for Blondes, Books, and Campfire Tales with Crystal and Bethany. Thanks for joining. Bye.